Tonight, we drift together into a corner of history that most books tuck quietly into their margins, a place half forgotten beneath the gaslit haze of old London. We're going to explore the everyday world of the women who lived and worked inside a Victorian brothel. It may sound unusual for a bedtime story, but in truth, it is a tender and deeply human glimpse into lives shaped by circumstance, resilience, and the slow passing tides of time. So, as you settle deeper into your pillow and let your breath lengthen just a little, allow this story to unfold gently around you, like an old diary opening after years of sleep. Take a slow breath in and let it ease out. Feel yourself melting comfortably into whatever surface is holding you. With that softness in your body, let your mind drift backwards, past the noise of the present day, past the glow of electric lights, until everything dims into the muted flicker of an oil lamp. We're stepping quietly into London, in the year 1857, at the cold blue edge of early morning. You awaken on a lumpy horsehair mattress, its uneven shape pressing faintly against your back. A thin wool blanket lies over you, scratchy in places but familiar, warmed slightly by your own body through the night. The sheets beneath you carry the faint trace of lavender water, an attempt to brighten their tired scent, but underneath lingers that unmistakable mustiness of fabric washed less often than one might wish. It is chilly, that sharp London chill that creeps under doors and settles into your bones, the kind that makes every movement just a little slower, a little heavier. Around you, the room is small and worn. Faded floral wallpaper clings to the walls, peeling at the corners where dampness has nudged its way in like an uninvited guest. There is a persistent smell in the air, a mix of coal smoke drifting in from countless chimneys, the distant river with its muddy, sour breath, and a sweet chemical note from the perfumes and powders that, here, are simply tools of survival. You are waking in a room at the back of a brothel in the Haymarket district. Not the most desperate corner of the city, but far from the luxurious establishments whispered about in certain circles. Across the room, another woman sleeps on a narrow bed. Her breathing is steady, rising and falling like soft waves against the quiet. The mattress beneath you creaks gently as you stretch your legs, toes pointing, the tension releasing in a slow ripple. For a moment, you linger there in the stillness, letting your muscles unwind before the day must begin. Outside, London is already stirring. You hear the distant clatter of horses' hooves on cobblestone streets, the rumble of cartwheels and the faint, echoing calls of the earliest street vendors. Someone shouts about fresh bread several streets away, their voice bouncing between tall brick buildings. These sounds weave together into the familiar morning rhythm of the city, a rhythm that continues whether you sleep, wake, laugh, or cry. Here in this house, they call you Mary. Not your true name, not the one your mother spoke with tenderness, but a name chosen for convenience, anonymity, safety. You've lived in this house for 2 years now, long enough to see dozens of faces pass through, some hopeful, some hardened, some simply exhausted. Long enough to know that every woman here carries a story far deeper than what strangers might assume. You sit up slowly, wrapping your shawl around your shoulders. The wool is rough but warm, and it shields you from the morning's bite. On the small wooden table rests a ceramic basin filled with water. A thin sheet of ice has formed on its surface. Winter in London is not known for mercy. With one finger you break through the frost and splash your face, the cold pinching your skin sharply before leaving a clear, awakening freshness behind. Your journey to this room was not a tale of scandal or dramatic fall, as so many sensational stories claimed in those days. You were not tricked, trapped, or ruined by a faithless gentleman. Your path was, in many ways, far quieter, and far more common. You were a seamstress once, skilled and diligent, sewing by candlelight while your fingers cracked in the winter air, and like so many women, you worked endlessly for wages so small they seemed almost like an insult whispered by the world. 14, sometimes 16 hours a day, stitching until your eyes burned, all for enough coins to barely feed yourself. One winter, when hunger had tightened its grip on you, until even your breath felt thin, an old acquaintance came to your rented room. Jane, once a fellow seamstress, now looked healthier, warmer, steadier on her feet. She brought real food, the smell of hot pastry filling the room like a small miracle. After watching you devour it with an embarrassing kind of relief, she spoke softly about another life, another way to survive. A brothel off Haymarket, run not with cruelty but with structure and care. A place with warmth, food, medical attention, and the possibility, however complicated, of earning enough to exist rather than fade. You didn't choose that path lightly, but when the cold presses too hard and hunger curls itself around your ribs, choices begin to look different, and eventually, with trembling hands and a weary heart, you walked through the door of Mrs. Cartwright's house. A soft knock nudges you back to the present. The maid, little Betsy, brings hot water with a shy smile, steam rising gently from the jug. She is still young, small for her age, but cared for here, in a way the streets never allowed. You wash slowly, savoring the warmth on your skin, letting the simple routine soothe you. Little by little you begin to feel awake, present, rooted in the quiet morning. As you dress, layer by layer, each piece familiar and practical, you reflect on the life around you. The house follows a steady rhythm, morning cleaning, afternoon visits from discreet regulars, evenings alive with footsteps, murmured conversations, and the muffled music of the city outside. The brothel, though judged harshly by society, operates much like any household, cooks preparing meals, maids rushing about, customers arriving with a mixture of hope, loneliness, or curiosity. Your roommate, Lily, wakes with a sleepy sigh. She is young, with hair like spilled sunlight, and dreams often of someday seeing the sea, a dream that feels both close enough to imagine and yet distant enough to ache. You leave the room and step onto the creaking hallway floorboards. The house feels warmer now. Fires have begun burning in the downstairs rooms. You follow the scent of coffee and fresh bread as it drifts upward, guiding you gently like a familiar melody. The stairs groan softly beneath your feet, polished by years of footsteps, some hurried, some hesitant, some simply tired. The kitchen glows with warmth. The cook works steadily at the stove. Betsy sets the table with quiet efficiency. Mrs. Winters reads a letter beneath the soft glow of morning light, her spectacles low on her nose. It is an ordinary domestic scene, almost peaceful, almost mundane, something that could belong in any household across London. For a moment, you stand on the threshold, breathing deeply, letting the warmth settle into you. In this brief, still slice of the day, before the complexities of work and survival begin, everything feels slow, soft, almost suspended. There is a rhythm here that carries you gently forward, day after day, like a quiet tide that asks nothing more of you than to breathe, to move, to endure. And so you do. Steady breath in, slow breath out, letting the calm of this early Victorian morning surround you completely. You step quietly into the warm kitchen, the air thick with the comforting sense of brewing coffee and freshly baked bread. The windows here are already fogged from the heat of the stove, meeting the cold morning air outside. For a moment, you simply stand there, letting the warmth gather around your chilled fingers, allowing the soft domestic hum of the room to wash over you. The cook sets a loaf on the table, the crust crackling faintly as it cools. She barely glances up, though you know she keeps track of everything. The girls' moods, their health, the ebb and flow of the household. Betsy places tin plates one by one, each movement practiced and precise, her braids swinging gently with the rhythm of her steps. Even Mrs. Winters, stern and dependable, seems softened in this early hour, her voice low as she mutters over the letter in her hands. You take a seat at the long wooden table, resting your hands against its smooth, well-worn surface. The chair creaks lightly beneath you, the kind of soft, familiar creak that feels almost like a sigh. Betsy places a cup of coffee in front of you, steam curling up in gentle ribbons. You thank her, your voice barely above a whisper, as though raising it would disturb the fragile calm of the morning. As you sip, the warmth spreads slowly through you, first your hands, then your chest, then finally into the deeper, quieter parts of yourself. You breathe a little more fully, shoulders relaxing as though some invisible weight has loosened by a fraction. The drink is strong, slightly bitter, but real coffee is a rare comfort in this part of London, and you savour it like a secret. Lily enters not long after, her hair hurriedly braided, the sleep still clinging to her eyes. She stifles a yawn as she sits beside you, pulling her shawl closer around her narrow shoulders. Without speaking, you slide the bread basket toward her, and she offers you a small, grateful smile. There is an unspoken bond between the girls here, forged not in affection necessarily, but in survival. Quiet shared rituals, small gestures of care, moments that stitch together the long days. Mrs. Winters glances up from her letter. "Snow by nightfall," she says matter-of-factly, as though announcing the time. "Be sure the fire's attended properly. No drafts today. Snow." The word hangs in the warm air like a drifting flake itself, cold, delicate, inevitable. London in winter becomes a different city entirely, quieter, muffled, as though the world is wrapped in a great grey blanket. For a moment you imagine the rooftops whitening, the gas lamps glowing softly through the falling flakes, the sound of carriage wheels dampened into silence. Lily shivers lightly at the thought, rubbing her hands together. "Snow always makes the streets slower," she murmurs. "Fewer men about." Mrs. Winters sniffs. "The ones who need company will come regardless," she says with a stern arch of her brow. "Weather never stops loneliness." Her remark settles into the air with a kind of gentle heaviness, not judgmental, just practical. You take another slow sip of your coffee, letting the truth of her words drift through your thoughts. In this house, men arrive for all kinds of reasons, some seeking comfort, some companionship, some simply escape from their own lives. Here, emotions and expectations intertwine in quiet, complex ways, half-spoken and half-forgotten the moment the door closes behind them. After breakfast, the house shifts into motion. The cook begins scrubbing pans. Betsy gathers up used linens. Mrs. Winters issues instructions in her sharp, clipped voice. You and Lily rise from the table, moving toward your morning duties with calm familiarity. Polishing glasses, dusting shelves, tidying the parlour. Each task has its own rhythm, a steady pace that carries you gently from moment to moment. The parlour is still cool when you enter it, the fire in the grate just beginning to coax warmth into the room. The wallpaper here is patterned in deep greens and golds, chosen by Mrs. Cartwright herself, to evoke a sense of tasteful comfort. The curtains are heavy velvet, pulled back only slightly to let in the pale winter light. You run a clean cloth over the side table, the wooden surface gleaming faintly beneath your careful strokes. From upstairs you hear the soft, muffled sounds of other girls beginning their routines. Footsteps, quiet voices, the occasional laugh. Life within these walls flows almost like a small ecosystem, a contained world where everyone knows her role, her duties, her hours of rest and hours of work. Outside, the city is loud and unpredictable. But here, in this old house with its creaking floors and warm kitchen, the days follow a strangely steady beat. You pause for a moment beside the fireplace, letting your fingers hover near the rising warmth. Your eyes drift over the chairs, the polished glasses, the faint scent of rose perfume lingering from the night before. It's a room designed to ease visitors, to soften their edges before conversations and transactions unfold. Yet in the quiet of the morning, stripped of its evening purpose, it feels almost like a sitting room in anyone's home. Quiet, peaceful, expectant. Lily enters behind you, carrying a small bundle of fresh cloths. "Mrs. Cartwright wants the mantel dusted," she says softly. "She said it looked neglected yesterday." You smile faintly. She notices everything. "Oh yes," Lily agrees, rolling her eyes with affectionate exasperation. Nothing slips past her. The two of you work in silence for a while, the soft swish of cloth on wood the only sound. Outside the front window, the morning light slowly brightens, though it remains muted by thick winter clouds. A cab rolls by, its wheels rattling gently. Somewhere a street vendor calls out, though from this distance his words are too faint to decipher. As you wipe down a small side table, your thoughts wander, drifting as calmly as dust motes in the air. You think about Jane, the girl who first brought you food on that cold winter day years ago. You think about your brothers, scattered across the country in pursuit of work, their faces softened now in your memory. You think about the sea lily dreams of waves rolling endlessly, washing everything clean. Your breath settles into a slow, even rhythm, in and out, just like that. Despite everything, mornings in this house often feel strangely gentle, like a quiet pause before the world becomes complicated again. There is comfort in the routine, in the small domestic tasks, in the companionship that forms quietly between women who have little else binding them together. When Mrs. Cartwright finally enters the parlour, she does so with her usual commanding presence. Shoulders straight, hair pinned perfectly, skirts neat and crisp despite the early hour. Her eyes scan the room with the precision of someone who has built her life on paying attention to every detail. "Good," she says simply, her voice smooth and controlled. "Carry on." Then she disappears back into the hallway, her footsteps a soft, steady rhythm on the floorboards. You and Lily share a fleeting look, a blend of amusement, respect, and resignation, and then, without a word, you return to your tasks, your movements slow and calm, the morning stretching gently ahead of you. The examination begins in the same unhurried rhythm it always does, the doctor moving with practiced ease, as though he has performed these motions so many times that even his hands have learned to rest while they work. His voice remains quiet, almost muted, softened further by the stillness of the room. Even the faint winter sunlight seems to dim itself out of respect for the procedure, settling in pale, dust-filled beams across the carpet. You follow his instructions automatically, the familiarity oddly soothing. There is no haste here, no alarm, only the slow, careful process of confirming that your body still holds steady beneath the strain of the life you live. He listens to your breathing, the cold circle of the stethoscope touching your skin with a fleeting shock that fades almost at once. His brow furrows slightly as he concentrates, though not in worry. Merely habit, the thoughtful attention of a man who has spent years distinguishing healthy signs from dangerous ones. You breathe in deeply, then out again, your chest rising and falling in a slow, even rhythm. The sound seems loud in the quiet room, a steady tide washing gently onto some distant shore. When the doctor finally straightens, you can see the relief on Mrs. Cartwright's face even before he speaks. "All clear," he says simply, writing your name and his notes in the small leather book. That is all, nothing more. And yet the words feel like a blessing, a reprieve, a gentle reminder that, for now, you are safe. You dress again with unhurried motions, smoothing the fabric over your hips, adjusting the collar, tying the small ribbon at your throat. These movements are second nature, and their familiarity gently pulls you back into your body, grounding you after the clinical detachment of the examination. Dr. Harrison closes his notebook with a soft snap, polite but firm, and offers you a brief nod of dismissal. Mrs. Cartwright returns the gesture, her posture straight and proper even in this private moment. No matter the setting, she never lets her authority slip. She thanks the doctor for his thoroughness, her tone carrying the weight of someone who understands that order is the fragile thread holding the entire house together. When you step back into the hallway, the contrast hits you immediately. The warmer air, the faint murmur of voices, the familiar scent of baking pastry drifting outward from the kitchen. The narrow corridor seems brighter somehow, as though the walls themselves exhale in quiet relief after each examination. You walk slowly, not out of reluctance, but simply because there is no need to rush. The worst task of the morning is behind you, and the rest of the day stretches ahead in its predictable, comforting rhythm. Back in the kitchen, the atmosphere remains lively in its cozy domestic way. The kettle whistles softly on the stove, steam curling upward in delicate spirals. Cook glances over as you enter, her expression shifting almost imperceptibly. A flicker of concern followed by visible satisfaction when she sees your calm demeanor. She has seen girls leave that room pale and shaken before. She knows what fear does to a body. Lily, still perched on her chair with half a bun in hand, raises her eyebrows in silent inquiry. You nod once, letting your shoulders relax. All clear. She smiles in quiet relief and returns to her pastry, tearing off small pieces with lazy contentment. Mrs. Winters pours you a fresh cup of tea without asking, the gesture so automatic, so deeply ingrained in her maternal instincts that it feels almost ceremonial. You take the warm mug in both hands, grateful for the return of its gentle heat. The liquid ripples softly with each small movement, the surface glimmering faintly in the dim kitchen light. You sip slowly, savouring the subtle bitterness and the thin ribbon of sweetness that softens its edge. It grounds you, steadying your thoughts and drawing you back into the calm pulse of the household. Around you, the rhythm of the house continues, as steady and predictable as the ticking of the mantel clock in the parlour. Betsy chops carrots at a measured pace, each crisp thunk of the knife landing with almost metronomic precision. Cook rolls out pastry in long, smooth strokes, the rolling pin gliding back and forth in an even hypnotic motion. Mrs. Winters threads her needle again, resuming her careful darning with the same patient concentration she gives to all things. Life here is rarely glamorous, nor is it peaceful in the grand sense of the word. Yet there is something undeniably soothing in these everyday rituals. These shared tasks performed with practiced ease by women who understand one another without needing many words. Outside, the faint sounds of London filter through the windows, a carriage wheel grinding over uneven cobblestones, a distant shout from a street vendor, the muffled clip-clop of a horse passing at a leisurely pace. All of it blends into an indistinct hum, a backdrop of life that continues regardless of your own small worries and quiet victories. It is a gentle reminder that you are one thread in a vast, intricate tapestry. One life among thousands wrapped in the soft, smudged edges of London's endless grey. You take a deeper breath, letting it fill your lungs slowly, then release it with quiet ease. The tension you carried into the morning, the dread of the examination, the worry for Josephine, the constant knowledge of risk that hovers over your life, begins to melt away, dissolving into the familiar warmth of the kitchen. You feel your body soften, your muscles loosening, your thoughts drifting into that sleepy, wandering state where the world feels muted and distant. Time stretches gently, not rushing forward, but simply unfolding, moment by unhurried moment. For now, you are here, in the warmth, in the quiet, in the soft, slow rhythm of the house on an ordinary Wednesday, and for a little while that is enough. The afternoon begins the way it always does, not with a sudden shift but with a quiet unfolding, like turning the soft, worn page of a book you've read many times before. Lunch passes in a gentle haze of conversation and the comforting heaviness of warm stew. The kitchen feels drowsy afterward, its heat wrapping around everyone like a thick wool blanket, encouraging slow movements and half-lidded eyes. Even Cook, usually brisk and bustling, seems softened by the warmth, leaning briefly on the edge of the table as she surveys the emptied bowls with a faint note of satisfaction. When your chores resume, they do so in a drifting, unhurried way. Mrs. Cartwright assigns tasks with her usual clipped efficiency, but even she seems slightly subdued by the lingering warmth of the kitchen. She sends you to tidy the upstairs sitting room, a task you know well, one that requires more presence than effort, and offers a kind of peaceful solitude. The staircase creaks under your feet, each step releasing a tiny familiar groan, like an old friend stirring from slumber. Upstairs the air is cooler, touched by the faint draught that always slips through the narrow hallway window. The sitting room greets you with stillness. Dust floats lazily through a thin bar of light, drifting in slow, aimless patterns rising and falling with the quiet breath of the house itself. You begin with the cushions, plumping them gently, smoothing the velvet so its nap lies neatly in one direction. The fabric is soft under your fingertips, worn smooth by years of use. Your hands move automatically, the task hardly requiring thought. The room feels timeless, suspended in a moment that could belong to any afternoon in the past 2 years, or perhaps any afternoon yet to come. Next, you turn to the small writing desk by the window. Its surface is cluttered with the remnants of Mrs. Cartwright's morning work. An inkwell left uncapped, a folded letter addressed but not sealed, a ledger half covered by a sheet of blotting paper. You tidy each item carefully, aligning the edges, capping the inkwell, stacking the papers in a neat square. The small, orderly motions bring a quiet satisfaction, the sense of restoring harmony to a space that thrives on structure. The faint sounds of the house filter upward, the clatter of the broom downstairs, Betsy humming as she polishes the banister, Cook calling to Lily for help with the washing up. These sounds blend together into a soft, domestic murmur, a kind of living lullaby that soothes the mind and slows the heartbeat. When you pause at the window, you see London pressed close. Its rooftops, its chimneys, its thin curls of smoke rising into the pale afternoon light. The street below is narrow, half in shadow, half touched by weak winter sun. A woman hurries past with a basket on her arm. Two boys chase each other, their laughter faint but bright. A dog trots behind a butcher's apprentice carrying a parcel of wrapped meat. All small scenes, ordinary and unremarkable, yet somehow comforting in their constancy. The city breathes, and you breathe with it. Slowly, softly. You dust the mantel next, wiping slowly across each object. The porcelain figurines stand in silent regard, their painted faces calm and faintly amused, as though observing the world from some distant realm, untouched by the day-to-day burdens of real life. The brass candlesticks gleam faintly once polished, catching the afternoon light. You trace the arc of the clock's glass gently, watching the slow sweep of its hands measure time in the quiet, steady language of ticking seconds. When the sitting room is finished, you step back, taking in the restored order. Everything stands neatly in its place. The air feels still once more, like water settling after a faint disturbance. You close the door quietly behind you, the latch clicking shut with a soft final note. Down the hall, the shared bedroom awaits with beds still rumpled from the morning's quick tidying. You move to your own first, smoothing the blankets, tucking the corners. The linen still holds a trace of your warmth from last night, a faint whisper of dreams half forgotten. You run your hand over the coverlet, feeling the texture of the woven pattern beneath your palm. The repetitive motion is comforting, steadying, like brushing out hair or tracing the contours of a familiar melody. As you work, your thoughts drift the way they often do in quiet moments. You think of the book waiting for you downstairs, of the ribbon you admired in the shop window the other day, of Lily's laughter when she shared a silly joke at breakfast. These are small thoughts, harmless ones, gently bobbing in your mind like bits of driftwood carried along by a lazy current. By the time the beds are all made, a faint golden quality has crept into the light, that soft, brief glow that comes on winter afternoons just before the day begins its slow descent into dusk. Shadows stretch more easily now, lengthening across the floor in languid shapes. You pause at the doorway, listening. The house has settled into its afternoon rhythm, quiet, predictable, safe in its routine, and you, for now, move within it gently, wrapped in its warmth, carried along by its slow, steady pulse. The small dignity of being offered that privacy lingers with you for a moment longer than expected. A fragile thread of comfort in a situation that could so easily be stripped of any gentleness at all. The examination itself passes in its usual quiet sequence, brief yet methodical, as though the doctor is reading through a familiar checklist in his mind. His hands, cool and shielded by thin gloves, move with the soft efficiency of someone long accustomed to this role. Breath, heartbeat, throat, eyes, each part of you observed with the calm indifference of routine. And then comes the portion you try not to think about, the part requiring a deliberate detachment, a soft drifting of your thoughts away from the immediate moment and toward kinder, warmer imaginings. You let your mind wander to the book waiting patiently upstairs, the one you left open beside your pillow. You picture the currant bun you will treat yourself to afterward, sweet and comforting in its simplicity. You let the memory of sunshine on your face rise gently in your mind, the way it felt in the yard earlier, warm and untroubled. All appears to be in order, he announces quietly at last, stepping back and slipping off the gloves with a practiced motion. He makes a small note in his ledger, his pencil scratching softly against the page, then gives a curt nod to Mrs. Cartwright. She rises with her usual composed grace and escorts you to the door. In the hallway, her voice drops to a low murmur. "Send Sarah in next, please." Then she disappears back into the examination room, her footsteps fading behind the closed door. You're left standing in the quiet corridor, feeling that faint, familiar hollowness the examination always brings. Not from pain, for there is none, but from the odd disconnection that comes from being momentarily reduced to nothing more than a set of vital signs. Necessary certainly for your own safety as well as the house's, but still, the emptiness follows like a small shadow. Back in the kitchen, you deliver Mrs. Cartwright's message to Sarah, then reclaim your cooling mug of tea. The solid ceramic feels reassuring in your hands, anchoring you gently back into yourself. You take a long, steady sip, savoring the warmth that spreads through your chest, and then reach for a currant bun. It's still faintly warm, the currants soft and sweet against the quietly bland dough. A simple comfort, but a real one. The hall clock strikes noon with its mellow, familiar tone. Another morning gone, as mornings so often do in this house, quietly swallowed by the rhythm of chores and routines. Soon the stillness will shift into its afternoon character, when customers begin drifting in as early as 1. Businessmen taking long lunches, most of them. Men who know the early hours mean fewer eyes watching, fewer voices whispering, more gentle attention if they want it. You finish your tea, brush the crumbs from your dress, and decide there is a little time. Just enough to slip upstairs and prepare yourself for the next portion of the day. The stairs creak softly as you climb, the house settling into its midday lull, a brief hush between the necessary turmoil of morning tasks and the smoother current of afternoon trade. Even the street outside seems muted, as though the world itself is pausing to breathe. Your room receives you with its familiar stillness, its modest belongings arranged in the same careful order you keep them in. A small room, yes, humble in many ways, yet entirely yours in a way few spaces have ever been. Your bed, faintly rumpled from the early morning. The small chest containing your carefully tended clothes. The window offering a sliver of sky above the surrounding rooftops. Grey today, but peaceful. Be in the mirror. Your reflection watches you with mild surprise, cheeks slightly flushed from the kitchen's warmth. Hair still pinned neatly from the morning. You look ordinary, really. Just another young woman in a simple dress of the kind worn by countless others walking these same streets. Nothing about you outwardly betrays the judgment society keeps tucked behind its polite smiles. No scarlet markings, no visible sentence of condemnation. The hypocrisy of it has often struck you. How a society that scolds so fiercely is the very one that shapes the need for houses like this and supplies the clientele who keep them thriving. But now is not the time for such reflections. You open your chest and pull out a dress more suitable for the afternoon. A modest blue one with slightly more fashionable lines. Not your finest clothes. Those are for evening. This one walks the line between respectable and alluring, just enough to please but not too much to startle. Changing is effortless. Years of practice have made these motions smooth, economical. The fabric of the blue dress feels lighter against your skin, a small shift that changes your whole sense of self for the hours ahead. You fix your hair, add a few pins, lightly pinch your cheeks for a touch of color. Cosmetics will wait until nightfall. Daytime requires its own softer illusions. You sit at the edge of your bed, allowing your breath to slow, your focus to settle, in through your nose, out through your mouth. A gentle transition from private self to the professional version of you. Similar yet not entirely the same. The separation matters. It protects a part of you that must always remain untouched. The bed supports you with a comforting solidity, the blanket's rough weave grounding your fingers as you pass them over it. For a moment, the quiet feels sacred. Just breath and stillness and the soft settling of the house around you. Then, somewhere below, the front door opens and closes. Voices murmur. Mrs. Cartwright's practiced welcome, smooth and warm. A man's deeper reply. The afternoon has begun. You rise, smoothing your dress one last time, taking one final slow breath, letting your shoulders soften as you exhale. The cool metal of the door handle greets your fingers. The hallway stretches before you in its muted tones, the stairs leading down like a gentle slope toward whatever the day will offer. Each step is slow, steady, deliberate. You let yourself move with the quiet rhythm of the house, the wood railing polished beneath your guiding hand. When you reach the parlour, Mrs. Cartwright is standing near the fireplace speaking to a visitor. The man, middle-aged judging by his posture, wears a well-cut dark coat that suggests comfort but not extravagance. You pause in the doorway, waiting. She looks up and nods, her gesture smooth and practiced. "And here is Mary now," she says. "Mary, this gentleman was just asking for some pleasant company." He turns at the sound of your name. A weathered face, thoughtful eyes, greying hair at the temples. Polite, slightly uneasy. A new customer. "How do you do, sir?" you say with a gentle curtsy, your voice shifting subtly into its professional softness. He introduces himself as Charles Wilson. Likely not his real name, but such details matter little. The ritual unfolds in its familiar way. Mrs. Cartwright offers refreshments. He requests sherry. As she pours, you observe him discreetly. The quality of his clothes, the faint roughness of his hands, the hint of a man who works but also manages. A merchant, perhaps, or a shop owner. When she excuses herself with her usual graceful discretion, the parlour becomes quieter, the crackling fire casting slow-moving patterns of light along the walls. You invite him to sit, maintaining the gentle balance between warmth and professionalism. The uneasy stiffness in his posture begins to soften as you speak. Your small reassurance is easing him into the comfortable ritual of conversation. Business associates, he confides, recommended the house. Respectable, they'd said. Respectable, always that word, the thin veil society clings to. You speak of the weather, of exhibitions at the Crystal Palace, of tea and spices and faraway places carried through London's docks. Nothing personal, nothing sharp, just the slow weaving of comfort. You notice he seems lonely, his gaze steady, his manner courteous, a man seeking more warmth than pleasure. When he finishes his sherry, you gently suggest continuing in a more private room. He agrees with a quiet nod, rising as you rise, offering his hand briefly. You guide him upstairs to the blue room, the designated daytime chamber, with its calm, faintly polished air. The encounter itself is simple, unremarkable in its shape, but softened by his politeness. The physical act brief, the rest of the hour spent in quiet closeness, his head on your shoulder, your hand stroking his hair as though offering comfort to someone long deprived of it. When the hour chimes, he dresses with quiet dignity. He thanks you gently, presses a small coin into your hand, and you accept it with the professional warmth you have mastered over time. After he is escorted downstairs, you return to the blue room to restore its calm order. Sheets replaced with practiced ease, basin emptied and refilled, towels straightened, soap set neatly in its dish. A ritual both practical and cleansing, restoring the boundaries between what has passed and what comes next. In the mirror, your reflection appears unchanged, steady and familiar. Same eyes, same mouth, same quiet self. You let yourself breathe for a moment. Slow, grounding breaths. 3 o'clock strikes from the hallway. You gather the linens, carry them downstairs and place them with the growing laundry pile. In the warm kitchen, Lily and Emily sit sharing tea. They look up, welcoming you into the comfortable circle that forms naturally among women who share the same realities. You join them, the wooden chair sturdy beneath you, the tea warm in your hands. They ask about your customer. You tell them he was gentle. Emily shares her own complaint about a less pleasant encounter, and the three of you laugh quietly together. Honest, unfiltered conversation. Something rare outside these walls, yet vital here. The kitchen hums softly with familiar sounds. Cook chopping vegetables, bread baking, afternoon sunlight filtering through the small window in a calm golden haze. You sip your tea, letting its warmth settle deep within you, grounding you once again in the gentle, drifting rhythm of the house. Mrs. Cartwright has always understood a simple truth. Girls who are well-fed and comfortable tend to work better and worry less. And in a house like this, such steadiness is its own quiet currency. The food she provides is neither luxurious nor refined, but always ample, always warm, always enough to make the body feel safe and the mind ease into a calmer rhythm. It is a modest comfort, yet a carefully measured one, enough to create loyalty without encouraging complacency, enough to soften the harsher edges of a complicated life. You reach for a slice of the seed cake resting on the plate in the center of the kitchen table, its dense crumb familiar beneath your fingers. "Anyone else booked for this afternoon?" you ask, more out of habit than real curiosity. Lily shakes her head as she sips her tea. "Quiet day," she murmurs. "Sarah had someone earlier, and Josephine's still resting, after what the doctor said. Mrs. Cartwright's in her office doing the accounts." A quiet afternoon. The words drift through the warm kitchen air with a kind of gentle inevitability. Afternoons often feel like this. Slow, unpredictable. The tempo of the house hovering somewhere between idleness and anticipation. The true business, the real pulse of the establishment arrives later, when offices empty and clubs release their gentlemen into the dimming streets. Afternoons are merely the soft exhale before the inhalation of evening. You break off a small piece of the seed cake and let it dissolve on your tongue. It is simple but satisfying, the caraway seeds offering their faintly sharp aromatic notes, just enough spice to stir the senses without waking the mind too fully. Cook, with her steady hands and her quiet pride, has a talent for these uncomplicated pleasures. "I might go out for a bit," you say, brushing crumbs from your fingers. "Need to get some hairpins and writing paper. Anyone want anything from the shops?" Both Lily and Emily decline, content to remain in the cozy circle of the kitchen. Running errands during slow hours is not only allowed but gently encouraged. Mrs. Cartwright believes that a little fresh air keeps the girls grounded, that short glimpses of ordinary life, shopkeepers, street vendors, the everyday flow of London, help maintain contentment. She is not sentimental, but she understands morale. After finishing your tea, you climb the stairs to fetch your shawl and purse. The purse is small, leather-worn soft from use, filled with coins from customers and the modest weekly allowance the house provides. Not much, just enough for pins, paper, or a small treat to enjoy privately in a quiet moment. You take up your shawl, a simple woolen garment in dark blue. It is warm, serviceable, unremarkable, perfect for blending into the crowds. You drape it around your shoulders, feeling its familiar scratch against your skin, that grounding little sensation reminding you quietly of your own solidity. When you step outside, the city envelops you instantly in its afternoon hum. Delivery carts rumble over cobblestones, young boys dart between them, carrying parcels. Women hurry with baskets on their arms, tradesmen shout their wares to anyone willing to listen. You fold yourself easily into this movement, indistinguishable from 100 other working women on errands of their own. No one pays you particular mind, and that anonymity is its own strange liberation, an invisibility that feels, for a little while, like freedom. Your feet carry you to the haberdasher's shop, nestled neatly between a greengrocer and a bookbinder. The little bell above the door rings as you enter, its tinkling sound oddly gentle. The proprietress glances up over her spectacles and greets you with a nod that is neither warm nor cold, merely the polite acknowledgement of one working woman to another. "Hairpins, please," you say. "The black ones, medium size." She produces a small box, 6 pence for the dozen. Good quality. These won't bend. You count out the coins carefully. Old habits of thrift cling to you, quiet and persistent. She wraps the pins in crisp paper and hands them over with a business-like bob of her head. The stationer's shop is 3 streets away, a pleasant little walk that gives you time to breathe the cool air and feel your muscles loosen in a way the house rarely allows. You purchase writing paper, envelopes, and a fresh pencil. The elderly owner chats freely as he wraps your goods, asking mild, nosy questions about sweethearts and correspondence. You smile, offer vague answers, letting him imagine whatever respectable scenario pleases him. These tiny performances, they are strangely soothing. For a few minutes you step into the role of a girl with a simple life, a girl who writes letters home, who shops for paper without a trace of irony, a shop girl, a governess, a daughter, anyone but what you are. The world accepts the illusion easily, though you are always aware of the boundaries, the respectable tea rooms you cannot enter, the church spire watching with imagined judgment, the little invisible fences that keep you in your place even as you walk freely through the streets. Your final stop is the baker's. The smell of warm pastry embraces you as soon as you open the door. You buy a small jam tart. Still warm, the strawberry filling bright and sweet. You eat it as you walk, savoring each bite, licking a dot of jam from your finger with simple, private pleasure. These tiny indulgences are the currency of your life. Small joys, immediate satisfactions. Your walk back is slower, winding. The exercise feels good, your body grateful for the movement after a morning mostly spent indoors. Your lungs expand with ease, your heart beats a little more briskly. There is something deeply, quietly satisfying about this simple physical functioning. The body is a steady machine doing what it must without complaint. The city passes around you in fragments of color and sound, and you absorb it all gently, without urgency. When you return to the house, afternoon has begun its slow transformation into evening. The light outside shifts toward gold. Shadows stretch long and patient across the street. The house, too, has changed. There is a subtle hum in the air, a readiness, a gathering momentum. You unlock the front door, each girl having her own key. It is a small gesture of trust, of autonomy, offered by Mrs. Cartwright in her own pragmatic way. Inside, the house feels warmer than before, filled with movement and purpose. Mrs. Winters intercepts you almost immediately, her keys jangling at her waist, her face set in its usual composed severity. There you are. Mrs. Cartwright wants everyone ready by 7 tonight. Several messages came in, might be busy. You nod, adjusting your thoughts as smoothly as you adjust your shawl. I'll start getting ready. Has Cook said when dinner will be? 5:30, early tonight. She glances at the paper packets in your hands. Got what you needed then? Yes, you say, raising the small bundle of hairpins. Satisfied, she moves on toward the kitchen, her steps brisk and purposeful. Upstairs, the atmosphere is one of cheerful chaos. Doors open, fabrics rustling, voices calling across the hall. Preparation for evening is always a mingling of independence and cooperation. Each girl tends to herself, yet everyone helps with the small tasks that require another pair of hands. In your room, you find Lily half-dressed, wrestling with the buttons at the back of her green silk gown. You set your purchases aside and help her buttoning each small, fabric-covered bead with practiced fingers. Thank you, she sighs. Thought I'd start early. Seems it'll be a busy one. Looks beautiful on you, you say. The green really suits you. She smiles at her reflection, adjusting her borrowed hairpieces, ensuring the curls fall just so. Compliments, reassurance. These are the gentle rituals of transformation, small kindnesses exchanged to steady the nerves before the evening's performance begins. Once she leaves, you begin your own preparation. You wash thoroughly, the cold water sending a tiny shiver through your skin, the sensation oddly invigorating. You lay out your evening clothes, the deep blue silk dress, slightly faded but still handsome. You dress layer by layer, fresh chemise, drawers, carefully laced corset, petticoats, and then the final gown settling around you in a whisper of silk. The act of dressing becomes its own slow ceremony, each piece of clothing a step toward the version of yourself required tonight. Your hair you style with deliberate care, brushing until it gleams, securing curls with your newly purchased pins. A touch of powder, a hint of rouge, nothing more. Just enough to give the illusion of effortless radiance. A dab of lavender water at your throat, wrists and behind your ears completes the transformation. The scent rises gently, calming, clean, a whisper of something soothing. When the hallway clock chimes 5:30, you descend for dinner. The gown shapes your posture, your steps measured, the silk whispering softly as you move. Dinner is simple but hearty. Beef stew, fresh bread, rice pudding with raisins. A glass of wine provides a gentle warmth, loosening the atmosphere around the table. The girls talk quietly, trading news of customers and rumors of who might appear tonight. Mrs. Cartwright listens, adding her occasional measured correction. Her authority is firm but never cruel. After dinner, she stands to address you all, reminding the house of expected guests and emphasizing, as always, that decorum and quality are paramount. Her words are familiar, but they settle over the room with their usual steadying effect. When she leaves, the girls linger a little longer, finishing their wine, savoring these last quiet moments. You sit in the warm dining room, feeling the heat of the meal, the softness of the chair, the calm settling into your bones. The evening is coming, but for now, you float in a brief pocket of stillness. Eventually you rise. The silk of your gown shifts delicately with the movement. You make your way to the parlour, where the first act of the evening will unfold. The room is transformed. Lamps softened to flattering glow, fire burning bright, decanter of sherry and sugared almonds arranged neatly. Sarah sits already posed on the sofa, her burgundy dress gleaming in the lamplight. "You look lovely," she says, appraising you with the detached yet supportive eye of someone who knows the trade well. The blue really does suit you. You settle into an armchair, the velvet smooth beneath your fingers, the warmth of the fire touching your skin. The room is quiet still, the evening not yet fully awake. "Early yet," Sarah murmurs, adjusting her skirts. "First booking's not till 8. Might start slow, but it'll be busy later, end of the month, payday." Her voice blends into the crackling fire, into the soft hum of the lamps, into the slow, steady breathing of the house as it prepares for the night ahead. Everything feels calm, measured, inevitable. The minutes pass quietly. The fire in the grate casts a warm, flickering glow that moves across the walls, stretching and shrinking as though the house itself is breathing along with you. Outside, the noises of London fade into a distant murmur, muffled by the thick curtains and the hushed interiors. Everything feels softened, measured, suspended in anticipation. You remain seated, letting the warmth of the room settle into your bones. Your fingers lightly trace the arm of the chair, feeling the smoothness of the velvet, the firmness beneath. It is grounding, a moment of quiet before movement, before performance. You breathe slowly, each inhalation and exhalation steady, deliberate. Time passes almost without notice, the hour approaching 8. Then the soft sound of a door opening downstairs alerts you. The first visitor, summoned quietly through Mrs. Cartwright's practiced discretion, has arrived. You feel a small, contained ripple of readiness pass through you, not anxiety, just the gentle shift from observation to participation. The parlour door opens, and a man enters. He is of middling age, neither striking nor ordinary. His clothes are well made, modestly worn, fitting neatly without ostentation. He carries himself with the careful posture of someone who has spent time managing both business and appearance. He pauses for a moment, taking in the room, then nods slightly towards Sarah and you, a polite acknowledgement of presence without intrusion. You rise from the chair, smoothing the folds of your dress, feeling the silk slide softly under your hands. Each movement is practiced, gentle, almost ritualistic. An unfolding, a quiet declaration that the evening has begun. Your posture straightens, shoulders back, chin lifted, and the calm control of your body reflects the clarity of your mind. "Good evening," you say softly, your voice steady, measured, carrying just enough warmth to feel welcoming without artificiality. The man inclines his head politely. "Good evening," he replies, voice low, courteous. The initial pleasantries are brief, necessary, and perfectly shaped to ease the distance between strangers. Sarah moves with her own measured elegance, guiding the conversation, offering a small glass of sherry with a gesture both refined and effortless. You follow her lead with ease, letting the soft ritual unfold naturally. He takes a seat in the armchair opposite you, adjusting slightly, settling into a posture of tentative ease. You sink back into your own chair, feeling the velvet beneath you, feeling the warmth from the fire, and the steady beat of your own heart. The faint scent of lavender mingling with the room's gentle aromas of wood and polished furniture. Minutes pass in calm conversation, light, impersonal topics. Weather, the distant train whistle, the subtle changes in the streets outside, creating a soft bridge between polite acquaintance and whatever will come next. There is no hurry, no pressure, just the quiet rhythm of presence, the measured cadence of civility and observation. You notice the small things, as always, the way he lifts his glass, the slight crease at the corner of his mouth when he considers a word, the way his gaze meets yours with quiet steadiness, lacking the nervousness some men carry. You catalogue each detail, gently, without intrusion, so that if the evening requires more than words, you are prepared to respond with ease, with presence, with the practiced grace of someone who has learned the rhythm of this life. The fire shifts in the grate, sending another flicker of light across the walls. You feel it warm the side of your face, and for a moment it is simply warmth, simply sensation, simply being. There is no rush, nothing demands immediate reaction. The calm of the house, the quiet before engagement, wraps around you like a soft cloak. A clock chimes softly from the hallway, a gentle reminder of the passage of time. The visitor glances at it, then at you, a subtle signal that the preliminary steps are complete. The shift will come soon, naturally, without abruptness. The boundaries have been set, the scene arranged, the rhythm established. You rise again, softly, letting the silk rustle against your legs. A deep, measured breath fills your lungs, and you release it slowly, letting your shoulders drop, letting the small tension of expectation flow away like water. Your hand trails lightly along the chair as you move, grounding yourself in the familiar, deliberate contact with the physical world. Sarah rises with equal poise, the two of you moving as if in quiet agreement. You guide him with a soft hand, a gesture, a gentle direction to the more private space upstairs. Each step of the staircase is deliberate, measured, the wood smooth beneath your feet, familiar from countless evenings like this. The house itself seems to adjust with you, settling into the rhythm of evening work. The blue room awaits, quiet, tidy, prepared, sheets smoothed, fire burning gently, the faint scent of lavender lingering from the earlier preparations. You pause for a single moment at the threshold, letting your body settle into readiness, letting your mind glide into the calm focus that this role requires. Each muscle loose yet prepared, each breath steady, each thought contained. He enters the room and closes the door softly behind him. There is no suddenness, no jarring movement, only the gentle shift from one state to another, from polite acquaintance to intimate engagement. The calm, careful rhythm of the evening carries you forward step by step, gesture by gesture. The moment stretches quietly, fluidly, with the soft inevitability of a tide. And in that quiet, measured transition, there is the steady heartbeat of the house, the subtle pulse of routine and ritual, the quiet, unhurried flow of the evening stretching ahead like a deep golden river. You open your eyes and allow the calm of the moment to linger, letting your awareness settle on the room around you. The faint scent of lavender from your earlier preparations mingles with the residual warmth of the fire, now slowly dying down. Outside, the distant sounds of London traffic hum softly, almost like a muted backdrop to the stillness you've created here. Slowly, you move to the washstand and dab at your face with cool water, careful to smooth any traces of the previous encounter. Your hands feel the smooth porcelain of the basin, the cold water running over your skin, grounding you in the present. You adjust your hair, repositioning the pins that may have shifted, letting the curls fall softly where they belong. The silk of your dress settles into place, the gentle swish of the fabric reminding you of the fluidity of your body's movements, practiced and graceful. Once satisfied, you take a deep breath and allow your mind to rest briefly on nothing at all. This pause, however fleeting, is yours, a quiet interlude between the ordered rhythm of your work, the gentle rise and fall of your chest, the steady beat of your heart, the softness of the silk against your skin. All these small, immediate sensations remind you that you exist beyond the transactional moments of the evening. Downstairs, the muted murmur of voices signals the continued flow of the night. You sense that another knock is imminent. The house has settled into its own rhythm, the girls moving quietly but efficiently as they manage the next arrivals. You feel the familiar readiness stir within you, a combination of alertness, anticipation, and calm control. Each step back toward the parlor is measured. You move with the awareness of your body in space, the weight of the corset and silk grounding you without constraining you. Your fingers lightly brush along the wall for balance, a subtle connection to the solidity of the house. The firelight casts gentle shadows across the hallway, softening the edges of the familiar path. Re-entering the parlor, you find Lily and Emily seated, their conversation dipping and rising like the quiet tide of a calm sea. They glance at you with faint, knowing smiles, the unspoken acknowledgement that the evening continues. each of you engaged in the same shared dance, yet always individually aware of your own place within it. You resume your seat, the fine china of your teacup resting delicately in your hand, the warmth seeping through your fingers once again. Sipping slowly, you allow the flavor to ground you further, the ritual of holding and drinking creating a subtle buffer against the next engagement. Time passes, measured by the distant chimes of the hallway clock, until another knock sounds at the door. Your posture adjusts almost automatically, back straight, chin lifted, shoulders relaxed but alert. Each breath is controlled, each movement deliberate, as you prepare to meet the next guest. The rhythm of the evening is familiar now, the polite greetings, the careful dance of conversation, the gradual transition from social to intimate interaction. And yet, even within this routine, there is the quiet richness of small details. The warmth of the fire, the soft rustle of silk, the muted scent of flowers. That makes each moment a world in itself, contained and complete. You rise, smoothing the folds of your dress with practiced ease, and approach the door, hand poised to open it. The next chapter of the night awaits. But for this brief instant, you are fully present, anchored in your body, aware of your surroundings, calm, poised and ready. You open the door with the same quiet grace, the soft click of the latch behind you barely audible. Standing there is a gentleman you recognize only by reputation, Mr. Benson. His presence is less imposing than Mr. Hamilton's, but there is a quiet confidence in the way he carries himself. Well-tailored clothing, polished shoes, and a restrained but expensive scent mark him as a man accustomed to comfort and order. "Good evening," he says, voice measured, respectful. "I hope I'm not keeping anyone waiting." "Not at all," you reply, your tone light but professional. "Please, come in." You gesture toward the parlor, the familiar warmth of the fire and the soft lamplight welcoming him in. As he steps across the threshold, your gaze takes in the details that distinguish him from previous visitors, the slight crease in his sleeve, the careful adjustment of his collar, the way his hands rest lightly at his sides. He is deliberate, controlled, observant. "Mary," Mrs. Cartwright interjects smoothly, appearing in the doorway. "Mr. Benson has come. Would you be so good as to see him to your room?" "Yes, of course," you respond, inclining your head politely. The brief formality reinforces the structure of the evening, the distinction between social courtesy and commercial arrangement. Leading him toward the second floor, you notice his eyes briefly scanning the parlor, taking in the arrangement of furniture, the vase of flowers, the glow of the fire. He is someone who appreciates attention to detail. Your room is prepared as before, the bed neatly made, linens fresh, the subtle fragrance of lavender and roses lingering in the air. The gas lamp casts a gentle light that softens shadows, flattering both of you. He sets down his hat and coat on the small chair near the door with understated care, not needing to be prompted. "Would you like some cherry first, or shall we begin our conversation directly?" you ask, pouring the glasses with the practiced ease of someone who has done this many times. Your fingers brush briefly against his, and he allows it, a small acknowledgement of intimacy without intrusion. "I think some cherry first would be agreeable," he replies, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. You settle into the chair across from him, the warmth of the fire reaching you both. Conversation begins slowly, as always, a neutral observation here, a polite inquiry there. You listen attentively, offering small insights that demonstrate interest without dominance. He responds in kind, his voice measured, calm, and occasionally punctuated with dry humor. The flow is familiar, almost meditative, the rise and fall of words, the subtle shifts in posture, the careful dance of proximity and attention. You note the small habits that signal comfort and engagement. How he tilts his head slightly when considering a point, the brief tightening of his fingers on the glass, the slight lean forward when intrigued. Gradually, the conversation drifts from surface-level pleasantries to more personal reflections. Mr. Benson speaks sparingly of his work, enough to hint at the pressures of his banking profession, but more of the focus is on lighter intellectual matters, literature, current events, the peculiarities of London life. You contribute thoughtfully, drawing on experiences outside the walls of the house, maintaining a balance between openness and professional discretion. Time passes unremarkably but pleasantly, the external world receding until it exists only as a distant hum beyond the closed door. At moments he pauses to observe you, as if evaluating not only your conversation but your presence, your movements, the subtleties of your expression. When the hour strikes its next chime, signaling the nearing end of your time together, you rise smoothly, brushing any stray fabric into place. Mr. Benson mirrors the movement with understated grace. He gathers his coat and hat, ensuring they are properly adjusted, his attention to detail as careful in departure as it was in arrival. "You've made this an unusually enjoyable evening," he says, offering a small bow of the head rather than a casual smile. The words feel measured, genuine, free of any crude implication. "Thank you," you respond, letting the sincerity in your tone carry without embellishment. "I hope your evening continues pleasantly." A small gesture of a coin, placed on the table rather than directly in your hand, marks the transaction completed with a muted elegance. You acknowledge it with a subtle nod, and he departs. Footsteps quiet on the stairs, the hallway door closing with a soft click behind him. Alone again, you exhale slowly, letting the tension drain from your muscles. The room is calm, the firelight casting a gentle glow across polished wood and soft fabrics. You move automatically into the after-customer routine, washing hands, smoothing hair, adjusting pins, resetting the bed. Each action precise, practiced, methodical. Once the space is restored, you stand in the center of the room, feet planted firmly on the floor. You close your eyes briefly, drawing a long, slow breath in through your nose and exhaling fully through your mouth. Shoulders relax, jaw softens, awareness settling on the present. This interlude is yours, the quiet between engagements, a pocket of ownership in the structured rhythm of the evening. Soon enough, another knock will come. The house hums softly around you, the presence of the girls elsewhere, Mrs. Cartwright overseeing from her office or parlour, the subtle noises of the London night outside. You are ready, steady, attentive, calm, and fully present. The knock comes sooner than expected this time. Light, polite, deliberate, the kind that carries the confidence of a man accustomed to command yet mindful of courtesy. You rise from your brief respite, smoothing the silk of your dress over your hips, and descend the short flight of stairs with measured steps. Mrs. Cartwright appears in the hallway just as you reach the front door, a purple silk whispering softly with each movement. "Mary, Mr. Lawson has arrived. Shall I leave you to him?" "Yes, thank you," you reply, inclining your head. The formal introduction is brief. She steps aside, allowing you to take the lead. Mr. Lawson stands with an easy grace, slightly older than the previous visitors, his hair flecked with grey at the temples, his eyes a calm, discerning blue. His suit is immaculate, understated in both cut and colour, signalling both taste and restraint. There's a faint scent of tobacco and cedar, neither overpowering nor unpleasant. "Good evening, Miss Mary," he says, voice steady, warm. "I hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all," you answer, offering a small, polite curtsy. "Please come in." He steps into the parlour, allowing the firelight to illuminate his face. The room already bears the residual warmth and soft lamplight from earlier guests, yet it now feels slightly different. Fresh, expectant, as though waiting for this new presence to shape its rhythm. "Would you like some cherry first, Mr. Lawson? Or shall we ascend to my room?" You ask, the glass in your hand reflecting the lamplight, delicate against your fingers. "A glass would be most welcome," he replies. The casual ease in his tone signals both comfort with the ritual and respect for the boundaries established. You pour carefully, the faint brush of your fingers against his hand intentional yet subtle, establishing connection without intrusion. He accepts it with a small nod, a brief smile that conveys acknowledgement and quiet approval. Conversation begins in the familiar cadence of the evening, neutral observations, small questions about the city, gentle humour, all delivered with a careful balance of engagement and respect. You note the slight shift in his energy as the initial formalities pass. How his shoulders relax, how the fingers tapping on the glass slow, how his gaze meets yours more frequently without pretense. The discussion naturally deepens. Mr. Lawson shows curiosity about arts and literature, touches lightly on his travels, and shares a few reflections on society and business. You listen, contributing insights that are measured, intelligent, and thoughtful. The subtle dance of intellectual engagement mirrors the physical and professional routines you have long practiced, give just enough to intrigue, maintain enough reserve to preserve propriety, sustain an air of competence without arrogance. Gradually, the conversation moves toward quieter, more personal reflections, the shared laughter and easy exchange creating a space that feels almost private, almost separate from the rest of the house and the structured rhythm of the evening. He admires your attentiveness, your careful observations, your subtle engagement. You, in turn, notice the gentleness in his posture, the way he leans slightly when considering your words, the thoughtful pauses before he speaks again. Time passes unnoticed until the soft chime of the hallway clock reminds you both that the allotted hour is drawing to a close. You rise, smoothing the silk of your dress with practiced ease. Mr. Lawson mirrors the gesture, adjusting his cufflinks and jacket with the quiet dignity of a man aware of propriety. "You've made this an unexpectedly delightful evening," he says, his tone sincere, carrying neither jest nor insincerity. "Thank you, Mr. Lawson," you reply, the words simple but honest. "I hope your evening continues pleasantly." A small gesture of coins, placed respectfully on the table rather than handed directly, marks the transaction complete with elegance and subtlety. You acknowledge it with a nod, letting the formal yet polite interaction stand as it is. Alone again, you move into the after-customer routine with practiced efficiency. Wash, adjust pins, smooth fabric, remake the bed. Each movement is automatic yet meditative, giving you the space to reflect and reset. The quiet of the room, the soft firelight, and the lingering warmth of the day's silk create a buffer between encounters, a pause that is yours alone. Standing in the center of the room, feet firmly planted, you inhale deeply, letting the air fill your chest against the gentle compression of your corset, then exhale fully. Shoulders relax, jaw softens, awareness narrows to the present. For these moments, there is no one else. No transactions, no expectations, no roles. Just you, the solid floor beneath, the gentle glow around you, and the calm before the next knock. The night stretches ahead, uncertain. Each encounter a new rhythm, each visitor a fresh pattern to navigate. You are ready, steady, attentive, and fully present. The quiet of the parlor is almost reverent after the bustle of the evening. Each corner seems to exhale, the soft glow of the lamplight reflecting off the polished wood, the faint scent of extinguished candles lingering in the air. Mrs. Cartwright looks up as you enter, her expression neutral but attentive. "The house is quiet at last," she observes, voice low, almost reflective. You nod, moving to take the nearest chair, allowing yourself a moment to sink fully into its support. The solid wood beneath you, the familiar creak as it accepts your weight, feels grounding. For the first time since the evening began, there is no expectation, no performance, no need to engage, just presence. The storm outside has intensified slightly. The rain hammers the windows in irregular bursts, punctuated by occasional distant thunder. The sounds are oddly soothing in contrast to the day's demands, a reminder that some forces are outside your control. You pull your hands into your lap, feeling the silk of your dress cool against your skin, where the fire's warmth hasn't yet reached. Mrs. Cartwright closes her account book and sets it on the small side table, her fingers steepled. "You performed well tonight," she says quietly. Not the usual businesslike assessment, but a note of approval that carries weight. Different men, different approaches, and you handled it with the efficiency and grace I expect. More than that, with intelligence. You allow yourself a small, almost imperceptible smile. It is unusual to receive praise beyond the professional. She rarely comments on anything other than the practical. The remark lingers, a rare acknowledgement that your mind as well as your body has been part of the evening's success. The other girls begin to drift down the stairs as well, one by one. Emily appears first, hair slightly tousled, expression tired but satisfied. Lily follows, quiet now, no longer arranging glasses but simply sitting, letting the last moments of calm settle around her. Sarah enters last, her steps careful, almost hesitant, carrying the weariness of the evening in the slump of her shoulders. A quiet camaraderie passes between you without words. Shared exhaustion, the subtle relief of performance completed, and the unspoken recognition that you have each survived another long night. A small plate of cold bread and cheese sits on the sideboard. A fresh pot of tea waits, its steam curling lazily toward the ceiling. The ritual is simple, restorative, yet comforting in its familiarity. Sitting together in the fading lamplight, sipping tea, the storm outside a muted drumbeat against the walls, the house feels like a separate world, one built of discipline, performance, and care. But also moments like this, where you are just yourself, your presence unrequired for anyone else's pleasure or approval. The clock strikes 2 in the morning. The evening is finally over. The last guests departed. The house hushed except for the occasional creak and the continuing rain. You rise, stretching slowly, letting the muscles regain their ease from hours of carefully controlled posture. Mrs. Cartwright remains seated, watching as each girl moves through her own small routines before retiring. There is no rush, no reprimand, only the steady rhythm of the household winding down. You exchange quiet nods with Emily, Lily, and Sarah, each acknowledging the completion of the day in shared silence. You ascend the stairs to your own room, the storm muffled by heavy curtains and thick walls. Standing by the window for a moment, you watch the rain blur the city lights, the occasional flash of lightning illuminating the darkened streets in stark relief. Finally, you remove your slippers and loosen the corset, the silk of the dress falling softly around you. The day's exertions leave their mark in pleasant exhaustion, your body ready to sink into the waiting bed. You settle beneath the covers, drawing the linens up to your chin, the subtle scent of lavender and fresh sheets surrounding you. Outside, the storm continues unabated. Inside, the house sleeps, and for the first time in many hours, so do you, entirely, completely at peace in the stillness of the night. Morning comes softly, filtered through the heavy curtains. The storm has passed. The rain has slowed to a light drizzle, leaving the city streets slick and gleaming under the pale November light. Your room is dim but not dark, the soft glow of early day illuminating the folds of your dress discarded on the chair and the neatly folded sheets of the bed you slept in. You stretch slowly, limbs yielding to the morning, muscles still remembering the long hours of the night before. The gentle ache is familiar, a reminder of work well done, and it settles into a comforting rhythm rather than discomfort. Rising, you pad softly to the window, barefoot on the polished floorboards, and watch the damp city begin to stir. Cabs rattle over cobblestones, shopkeepers sweep the steps outside their stores, and the occasional pedestrian hurries with umbrella in hand. The house itself is quieter than the evening, the usual sounds of preparation. Cook moving about the kitchen, Josephine arranging linens, Emily and Lily readying dresses, have not yet begun. You take a moment to savor this stillness. The domestic smells of the previous evening have faded, replaced by the crisp scent of damp streets carried through slightly opened windows, mingled with the faint warmth of the fire still dying in the hearth below. Descending the stairs, you find the house beginning to awaken. Cook is already at her work in the kitchen, preparing the early breakfast and the simple fare for the girls who will be attending the morning clients. Josephine moves quietly, stacking clean linens and polishing the silver trays for tea service. Even Mrs. Winters is in motion, tidying corners and checking the small account books for notes from the night before. You join them at the kitchen table, settling onto a chair with the comfort of routine. A plate of cold meats, bread and fruit is set before you, and Cook pours steaming tea into the simple pottery mugs used during the day. The warmth spreads through your hands as you lift the cup, inhaling the faintly smoky aroma. Eating slowly, sipping the tea, you allow your mind to wander over the events of yesterday evening. The patterns of clients, the subtle differences in their approaches, the fleeting but meaningful moments of conversation, all catalogued carefully in memory, ready for application when the next evening arrives. Emily and Lily join you, both slightly rumpled from sleep but already carrying the practiced elegance of women accustomed to transformation. They exchange quiet observations of last night's business, strategies for handling particular clients, and small anticipations for the evening to come. Their voices are subdued, carrying that mixture of camaraderie and professionalism that defines life in the house. After breakfast, you move to tidy your personal room, restoring order after the night's exertions. The dress you wore is folded neatly, the hairpins and brushes arranged with methodical care. The small mirror above the washstand reflects a face still soft from sleep, no traces of the performance required only hours before. This preparation, small and deliberate, is part of the rhythm that structures your days, marking the boundary between rest and readiness. By mid-morning, the house is fully in motion. The first clients of the day will arrive soon, and the cycle begins again. Careful grooming, measured conversation, the controlled performance of charm and attentiveness. Yet in this brief interlude, between storm and city, night and day, work and repose, you allow yourself a rare indulgence, a few moments of quiet, a slow inhalation of the world outside, and the soft knowledge that you are entirely present in your own body, entirely yourself, even if only for a heartbeat before the day's demands resume. The rain has left the streets sparkling, and for a moment you imagine walking outside, letting the cool November air press against your skin. But duty calls. The house, with all its routines, expectations, and careful performances, waits. You straighten your back, smooth your skirts, and rise to greet the day. The first knock comes shortly after 10, light but deliberate. Mrs. Cartwright, already in the parlour with a quiet air of authority, looks up and nods in acknowledgement of your readiness. "Mary, a gentleman for you," she announces, her tone even but carrying the unspoken weight of instruction. You nod, lifting your chin slightly, and follow her to the hall. The gentleman is younger than some of last night's visitors, perhaps in his late 20s, with the clear, crisp air of someone not yet worn by the city's harsh routines. His suit is dark, tailored simply but well, and he carries himself with the easy confidence of a man used to discretion and quiet attention. He introduces himself as Mr. Collingwood, extending a hand with polite formality. You curtsy lightly, accepting the handshake, and offer a practiced smile that conveys warmth without suggestion of intimacy yet. Mrs. Cartwright exchanges a few quiet words with him, payment, boundaries, expectations, then steps back, leaving you to lead him to the parlour. The space is arranged as usual, warm light from the fire, tea on a side table, a few ornaments and books lending a sense of casual domesticity. The moment of encounter begins with ritual. Small talk, polite conversation, assessments of tastes and preferences. Mr. Collingwood speaks with intelligence and ease, and you mirror his measured responses, listening attentively while subtly guiding the dialogue towards shared interests, literature, music, and current events. The conversation flows effortlessly, your body language open yet contained. You lean slightly forward to signal interest, hands resting lightly on your lap, eyes attentive. Each gesture is small, precise, meant to reassure, to engage, to create the illusion of natural familiarity. You notice the subtle shift in his demeanour, the slight relaxation of shoulders, the lighter tone in his voice, the easy laughter that follows your gentle teasing remarks. Soon the transition moves as it always does, from conversation to quiet physical closeness. The gradual intimacy unfolds with professional care, each movement deliberate, consensual, attentive. Mr. Collingwood is careful, respectful, an ideal client in many ways. Your mind remains present, noting reactions, adjusting approach but not overthinking. Muscle memory and experience guide the physical performance, allowing you to focus on the interplay of engagement and poise. Afterward, he lingers briefly, content in the warmth and quiet of the parlour, appreciating the human connection, however contained within this professional framework. You offer a small cup of tea, and he accepts, lingering over the final sips before standing to dress. The standard farewells are exchanged, polite smiles, slight bows, the payment discreetly handled as Mrs. Cartwright re-enters the room. Once he departs, you perform the familiar restoration, tidying the parlour, straightening cushions, refilling the tea, checking your own appearance in the small mirror. Your dress has shifted, hair slightly loosened, a faint flush on your cheeks. These small details are corrected efficiently, a quick brush of hairpins, a dab of powder, adjustment of skirts. Minutes later, another knock, and the rhythm begins again. One client after another, each encounter slightly different, some requiring more conversation, others more attention to physicality. Through it all, your body remains present, your mind disciplined, balancing performance with awareness, charm with control, energy with measured reserve. By mid-afternoon, the house enters a brief lull. The later arrivals have yet to come, leaving space for quiet tasks, tidying rooms, polishing silver, arranging flowers, checking linens, or simply taking a moment to breathe. In these pockets of stillness, you feel the satisfaction of labor well performed, the mental relief of brief reprieve, and the small grounding pleasure of being fully present in your own body. The day's work continues in this measured pattern: preparation, engagement, restoration, brief rest, and readiness for the next client. The subtle interplay of professionalism and intimacy, performance and authenticity, structure and freedom, marks the hours. You move through each with practiced grace, your awareness of self and surroundings anchoring you in this demanding, unusual yet surprisingly ordered world. The evening deepens. Outside, the storm has grown heavier, rain lashing against the windows in uneven sheets, wind rattling the sash frames. Inside, the house is warm, lit by lamps that cast pools of golden light across the polished floors and soft furnishings. The parlor, usually a quiet space between customers, now holds a subtle tension, a prelude to the next wave. The first of the late-night arrivals is announced, a small party of men returning from their club dinner, slightly boisterous from wine and conversation. Mrs. Cartwright greets them with her usual smooth authority, guiding each towards seating, assessing which girl should accompany whom. You watch, noting preferences, demeanor, physical presence, and any signs of temperament that might affect your interaction. A tall man with graying hair and a deep, resonant voice is paired with you. Introductions are brief but courteous. He is Mr. Arlington, a banker, impeccably dressed despite the evening's indulgences, with a practiced smile and an air of calm control. You offer your hand with the gentle warmth that has become habitual, and he bows slightly over it, a gesture of old-fashioned politeness. Conversation begins as always, neutral observations about the weather, the storm outside, and the recent news. Slowly, you steer the dialogue towards safer topics that invite him to reveal something personal without feeling exposed. He talks about his travels, the opera he attended last month, his favorite books. His voice quiet, measured, with occasional inflections of pride or humor. You listen, interject lightly, showing curiosity without overstepping, keeping the conversation engaging but comfortably contained. The subtle dance of proximity begins. You lean in slightly when he speaks, a careful gesture to create intimacy. Your hands occasionally brush against his, a deliberate touch meant to reassure and charm without promising more than decorum allows. The rhythm of your work tonight is different from the early evening. The men are more social, more relaxed, more likely to expect conversation as part of the encounter. Here, your mind and body both must remain attuned, balancing attention, charm, and physical presence. As the evening progresses, small physical gestures emerge naturally, a hand resting briefly on his arm, the gentle guidance of a chair, a tilt of the head, accompanied by a smile. The intimacy is measured, elegant, and entirely under your control. Mr. Arlington responds with subtle cues, a light touch here, a quiet laugh there, a glance that conveys appreciation for your attentiveness. Eventually, the transition comes. You guide him toward the private room upstairs. The space is as prepared as always, fresh linens, gentle light, the warmth of the fire. The atmosphere encourages comfort and relaxation. What follows is a professional exchange, conducted with skill and discretion. He is careful, attentive, and respectful, which allows the encounter to flow naturally, without tension or difficulty. Your mind remains present, noting each nuance, each reaction, each shift in energy. Afterwards, Mr. Arlington lingers briefly, enjoying the quiet aftermath, a small cup of tea offered as he regains composure. Polite, measured farewells are exchanged, and payment discreetly handled by Mrs. Cartwright, always with attention to maintaining the dignity of the house and the women who work there. Once he departs, the restorative routine begins: washing, changing linens, checking your own appearance, and tidying the room. Your movements are automatic, guided by years of practice. The fire still burns warmly, and the storm outside continues its persistent rhythm. You return to the parlour briefly, where Lily and Emily are gathering their things for the night. Their faces show the same mixture of fatigue and quiet satisfaction that mirrors your own. The house is beginning to quieten as the final arrivals leave or prepare to depart. There is a small sense of relief, the satisfaction of work completed, and the comfort of shared experience with your colleagues. Finally, alone in your room, you sit for a moment, letting the weight of the evening settle into your muscles. The storm outside rages on, but within these walls, warmth, order, and quiet allow your body and mind to recover. Deep breaths, slow and deliberate, help release the last traces of tension. The silk dress is loosened and folded for the night, the corset removed, and the muscles of your torso finally free. You lie back, listening to the rain patter against the window, feeling the exhaustion, satisfaction, and small sense of accomplishment that only a long, full night can bring. The house sleeps, save for the occasional creak of floorboards or distant murmur from the staff quarters, and for a brief time, the world outside and the work of the evening recede entirely. The quiet of the room deepens. The only sounds are the rain and wind outside, and the soft, steady rhythm of your own breathing. Each inhalation brings in the faint warmth of the bedroom. Each exhalation carries away the fatigue of the day, leaving your body lighter, looser, completely at ease. The storm, once sharp and urgent, becomes a distant, soothing percussion, a lullaby for the exhausted, attentive mind. Your thoughts dissolve gradually, like mist dispersing under the morning sun. The details of the evening, the conversations, the movements, the subtle negotiations of attention and touch, fade into a background hum, no longer demanding scrutiny or effort. Only the present sensation remains, the weight of the blankets, the softness of the pillow, the comforting closeness of the night and the room. A sense of continuity, of lineage and shared experience with the women who came before you, lingers in the edges of your mind, but it is gentle, a quiet companion, rather than a call to action. In this liminal space between wakefulness and dreams, there is only release. Muscles relax further, vertebrae pressing lightly into the mattress, feet sinking into the familiar contours of the sheets. The mind, usually alert and calculating, now drifts freely. Fleeting images pass, memories, possibilities, the shadowy outlines of imagined worlds. But none demand permanence. None need judgment. All dissolve as quickly as they arise. Your breathing slows, deepening into long, effortless waves, sinking subtly with the distant rhythm of the storm. Limbs grow impossibly heavy. The pillow cradles your head, and your body settles entirely into the mattress. Thought and worry have no purchase here. Only the sensation of being, complete and unbroken, remains. And at last, as the storm swells outside, your consciousness slips entirely into sleep. Deep, restorative, undisturbed sleep. The world of work, of performance, of careful observation and response recedes entirely. There is only warmth, weight, and calm. The long day is behind you. The night, storm-laden and wild beyond the walls, is safely contained. You are at rest, fully, completely, and without interruption. In the depths of sleep, the mind begins its gentle wanderings. The body, heavy and warm beneath the blankets, is entirely still, yet the imagination drifts freely. Scenes shimmer and shift, loosely tethered to memory and desire, yet shaped by the subconscious mind into a private theatre of thought. First comes the faint echo of the evening's faces. Mr. Hamilton, Edward, the familiar yet fleeting presence of other clients. Their features blur into soft impressions, not demands but symbols of interaction, economy, and social expectation. These images float past without insistence, like clouds drifting across a pale sky. Then the mind turns inward. You feel the sense of control and skill you exhibited during the day. Each gesture, each word, each glance a carefully measured element of a performance. And it becomes almost abstract. You watch yourself move with grace, speaking and smiling, yet detached from the necessity of it. There is admiration here, not vanity, but acknowledgement of competence. The body is relaxed, the intellect at ease. The dream shifts again. You are walking along a quiet, rain-slick London street, though the storm outside has softened into a misty drizzle. The lamps glow in gentle halos, reflecting off wet cobblestones. You are alone, yet accompanied by a sense of lineage and shared experience, the unspoken knowledge of countless women who navigated similar paths, each negotiating a precarious balance of survival, dignity, and small freedoms. The weight of history is present, but not oppressive. It is a comforting cloak, warm as your bed at home. Lily appears beside you in this dreamscape, her presence familiar and grounding. She smiles, offering a hand that you take instinctively. Words are unnecessary. The shared understanding of your lives flows silently between you. Together, you move through the mist, past the muted glow of streetlights, past the outlines of buildings both real and imagined, blending memory and possibility. Time itself becomes malleable. Moments stretch and compress. The past and future mingle with the present. You pass through scenes from your work, not as obligation but as observation. Gestures, expressions, conversations replayed with the clarity of reflection, without fatigue or tension. You notice small details you had missed in wakefulness, the way a customer's hand trembled slightly, the faint scent of lilac lingering from a lamp, the careful adjustment of a skirt or sleeve to maintain elegance. These details float like jewels, admired without need to act. Then the dream softens further. You are lying in a meadow, under a grey, gentle sky, rain misting lightly, cool against your skin. The sensation of being in a body is tender and uncomplicated. Every breath draws in the earth and sky, every exhale releases the day, the work, the constraints of survival. Lily is nearby, her presence calm and steady. The wind carries the faintest scent of flowers and wet stone, a reminder of life continuing beyond walls, beyond roles, beyond human designs. A profound calm settles. You no longer move, no longer think in the precise calculations of wakefulness. There is only the body, the mind at ease, and the subtle rhythm of the storm-drenched world around you. For a few hours, all necessity and expectation are suspended. Sleep deepens still, carrying you further into that private, indeterminate space where the body restores, the mind integrates, and the spirit, however quietly, renews. You float on the current of your own consciousness, safe, warm, entirely unobserved,